Is locking in for 1 year actually worth it? This is Night Stalker Finance, and this is how I grew my net worth by over $40,000 in just 1 year. So, getting right into it, I'm not a financial advisor. This is just what has worked for me, in the recent past, and I'm happy to share it with you because I think that you deserve more. Everyone does. And so, with that being said, I'm a 27-year-old guy. I'm single. I have no kids, and I was going to school part time and working at Home Depot, out making hourly. I was making $18.54 an hour, which actually isn't a terrible hourly wage, but I wasn't really saving a huge amount. I wasn't expending excessively either. I was 25 at the time, and I was living at my mom's house, and so I didn't really have any expenses other than like my phone bill and a couple other things, my car insurance, um, all that kind of stuff. I believe at that time my car was paid off, and so I all I really had was just a couple of expenses. So I was able to save a good amount, or consistently. I shouldn't say good amount, but I should say consistently. I was able to not, be in the red every month, and so I ended up, getting kind of tired of that routine of, oh, well, just school and hourly. I wanted more. I wanted more out of life and to have a better foundation. And I felt like I didn't have anything built for the age that I was. And so I ended up going all in on a sales job. I decided, hey, look, I'm going to go and be a salesperson at a dealership. And I thought, what is the worst that can happen, right? I was like, I'm going to stop going to school for now. The ultimate goal was to go back to school eventually. And I decided to stop for, I was like, look, if I take 6 months, I was like, do it for 6 months. If you absolutely hate it, everyone here at this job loves you. You miss one semester of school, you can go right back to your same job, right back into school. I was like, what is the worst that can happen? And so I ended up pulling the trigger and I just started applying to places. I ended up getting hired at one. And the first 3 months were kind of rough. I had no sales experience. I was still learning, the steps to the sale, how to negotiate effectively, how to close deals, managing, customer expectations and also satisfaction after the fact. Once you sell them a product, if they have questions, if they find something that they're unhappy with and they want it resolved, how all those things, how do you handle all of that, right? And so it's a very, it built my skill set very well. And I consider myself, a decent sponge, nothing too crazy, but I do learn well. And so, sales is a superpower. I effectively doubled my income in that year. That entire year, I doubled my income for sure. All of a sudden, and again, for the first, 3 months, I was not making crazy money. I was making hourly. I was making $15 an hour, which is actually a pay cut compared to what I was making at Home Depot. But because I was putting in, 60, 70-hour weeks, it ended up being around the same. And so what ended up happening was it ended up working. I ended up figuring out how to sell a car and how to manage customer expectations, how to negotiate, how to close deals. And one of the months, one of my first good months, I ended up selling 13 cars. And so, and for those of you that know, I hat tricked on the last day of the month, which was a crazy accomplishment. Which is selling 3 cars in a day. Um, and that month, I want to say I made like 7 grand, and I was like, oh my God, staring at that number on the paper, I was awestruck. And I vividly remember one of my coworkers who had, kind of coached me a couple for these past months, of like, hey, you need to say this, you need to do this, or if I needed help, he'd jump in and all that. Um, and I remember him asking me like, is that the most that you've ever made? And I said, yeah. And he was like, well, it's definitely not going to be the last, like you're going to make more. And that really opened up my eyes. And I ended up sticking with it, and I stuck with it past that 6 months. Um, I ended up doing a little over a year of that, and then I decided to go back to school. But going back to it, I mean, sales is a superpower. You can you can literally, if you know how to sell anything, it can be insurance, cars, it can be solar, it can be, yourself, because that's a huge one too. Uh, you the world is in your hands. You can literally build something, make something, go sell someone else's product, you because the same rules apply. The game settings might be different, right? You might be selling something else, but you can sell it. You understand how it goes. You understand how to negotiate, how to close deals, what follow-up looks like, what expectations there are that they might have, all of those things. And it's huge. It helps you so much down the line in relationships, in your personal finances, in your resume, and how appealing that looks to an employer. Um, so the return on investment, with getting the sales job was way more than I expected. I had a feeling that it was going to be better than where I was at starting, but it ended up being way better than I ever could have imagined. And the only reason why I'm not still doing it is because the ultimate goal was to go to school and get a degree. And so that's, I ended up continuing that, but now I feel so much more confident and secure. I have a solid foundation now. I have, some assets and stocks. I have a healthy savings account, in a high yield savings account. And that kind of is a good segue into my next point. Is there were just little adjustments that I made over time. When you're around salespeople like that, the talk is money. People are there to make money. They want money. And so, you naturally just kind of get inserted into conversations, things like retirement accounts and stocks, and, um, uh, high yield savings accounts, APRs, all that kind of stuff, interest rates, whatever it might be. But there's also the kind of more negative side of it, things like sports betting, or other kind of more, I guess, negative connotation things within the finance world or the money world. Uh, but I mean, just by switching small habits like that, things like opening a high yield savings account, I literally tell all of my friends this. Anyone that's close to me, I'm like, please, for the love of God, open a high yield savings account. It takes 15 minutes to do, if that. And you just get passive income. It is truly passive income. You just move your money. After those 15 minutes, you put a deposit in there, and now that money is making interest as opposed to it being sitting in a normal checking account. And I've told this to people, and I literally hear them go, "Oh, oh yeah, okay, cool." And then that's it. There are no questions, no anything. "Oh no, who should I use?" Nothing like that. I'm like, dude, that's an extra anywhere from, it's 3% of whatever's in there monthly. And so it's like, why would you not do that? That's a couple $100 a month. I don't see why you would not want to do that. And so, little things like that, looking at other recurring payments that you have. Um, my phone bill, for one, I used to be paying $100 a month for unlimited plan, and I ended up looking into it, and I was actually paying $20 on. So it's an $80 payment plus $20 for a protection plan on my phone. So like if my phone got lost or broken, stolen, I could claim it and they would replace it. However, when I read the fine print, though, it wouldn't be with a brand new one. They would have replaced it with a refurbished one. And I'm like, why in the world? Why? I'm like, I don't want to pay for that. I'm like, I would rather just pay out of pocket, especially at the time. I was like, I have money in the bank. I was like, if I need a new phone because I lost it, which I don't really lose things in the unlikely event, right? I'm like, I would just pay cash for a brand new one anyways. So I'm like, why am I paying for this? And so I canceled that little add-on to the plan, and so now my plan is $80 a month, and it's an extra $20, right? But hey, every little bit helps, you know. Once you add in that high yield savings account, that 3% that you're getting, plus the $20 on your phone plan, whatever it might be. Insurance is another big one. A lot of insurance plans, you know, they have, even if you have full coverage, right? And I would check your local laws and stuff like that, of course, you know, before you modify your insurances, especially if you're financing your vehicle. But you can modify your plan, you know, you can modify what coverages you have. You can also, a lot of insurances offer things like rental coverage. So if you have to get a rental car, they'll cover it, right? But in my case, I'm like, no, I have money that I'll pay if I need to get repairs done. And I'll just get a rental if I need a rental. And so I canceled that, and that saves you a couple bucks a month, you know, but it all starts to add up, right? And that's what I'm getting into here is I didn't have too many expenses. I lived somewhat frugally. You know, I still went out and, you know, had fun with friends and was able to live, you know. I wasn't eating beans and rice and you know, doing any of that. But, you know, I was able to shovel couple grand a month into my savings account every month, which was huge, you know, and that's kind of where it is today. Where now I have, you know, I grew it very substantially in the past year, very, very substantially. And not just from my own investments, but also because, you know, the market's been doing great. If you look at it the past year, you know, a lot of my investments are anywhere from 10 or 11% all the way up to close to 30%, you know, from when I first had started investing in them, especially when I had money set aside because I was living frugally and because I was getting that money from the sales job that I took a leap of faith on. And that's what this video is about, you know? So that's why I wanted to get on here. I just wanted to share a little piece of my story. I plan on making more and diving deeper into different chapters of my life, what I'm currently doing in market-wise, you know, where my investments are, certain habits, all that kind of stuff. I recently changed like allocation to my retirement, so I'm going to be getting into that in a different video. And so yeah, we'll start from there. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.